about the V5.5 and its features and benefits, but also looking at the V6 as well as the differences between the two, and some of the ways you would apply the V6, which you wouldn't do the V5. So looking at the V5.5, we just came back from Melbourne and Sydney shows where the 5.5 was extremely well received, because most people that are out forward drive camping and so on and so forth don't require massive inverters and things like that, but they do require an inverter capacity. So the V5.5 is 100 amp hour Prismatic A grade, Life PO4, so the voltage is 14.6 is the fully charged voltage, but it's a nominal of 12.8. So what we say is that when you plug the charger in a 14.6 profile, or your RAG, your MPPT for example, then it's a 14.6 profile. When you unplug the charge, it'll drop down to 13.3 or so, but it'll run through the whole cycle at 12.8. So what that means is that voltage sensitive accessories like a fridge, you could have it on a high setting and it'll run right through its cycle and then drop off right at the very, very end. So currently this one here has been running for 6 days now with a 52 litre fridge at -6, and it's still got 20% left after 6 days. Just gives you an idea, because it's still running through, even though it's only 20% left, it's still sitting at 12.8. So I've got a fridge running off this and a small oven, and it's currently only drawing 3 amp because that's already warm and the fridge is cold. So that's the V5.5. It does have 2 Anderson outputs. Please remember that even though the V5.5 has 100 amp constant, you can't run 100 amp out of a 50 amp Anderson. So 50 amp rated Andersons is what they are. You can't run any more out of it. So I typically run a 600 watt inverter off one of these and then run the fridges off one of these with a Y lead. So if I've got a Y lead running out of there, I can have 2 fridges running, plus out of here, if I wanted to, I can be running a, say, 600 watt inverter and be charging things like my 18 volt Ryobis or my DeWalt's or my Milwaukee's, because the fast charge in those draws about 400 watt off a 240 charge, of 240 plug. So you can plug one of them to a 600 watt. So you could run a 600 watt inverter, or you could run 2 600 watt inverters at the same time, because you've got a 100 amp hour constant. 1280 watt hour is the size of the battery. So one thing we did find out at the show was a lot of people get confused and they think that they can run their house off one of these little square things, that it's about 40 amp hour, and then it's got a built-in or 2 built-in inverters. But the 40 amp hour, how long is it going to last and what's it going to run? So people think this is going to run the house indefinitely without a charge or without solar going in. So when people came and talked to us, we said, what have you been told? And that's one of the things they thought, well, we could plug anything into it. Not the case, because the size of the inverter will be the wattage. You have to look at the accessory wattage and look at what it's going to draw. So the size of that there, you can see, is 110 thick, and the dimensions are 325 by 320 and 110 thick. And if you go over to the V6, the profile of that is only 61 millimeters thick. So the application of that behind seats is a lot more applicable than this here. They're both about 14 kilo, that's about 15 kilo. They both have the installation tabs. This has 2, this one has the smaller ones over here because it's thinner. And the V6 has 100 amp hour constant, 100 amp BMS in both, but you can run up to, say, a 1500 watt inverter, 34 watt hour. So out of a 1500 watt inverter, you'd run up, say, quite happy up to 1300 watt. So if you wanted to run a microwave or induction oven, you need to look at what is the draw on that. So remember with microwaves that if it's a 600 watt microwave or 700 watt microwave, you've got to look at what is it going to draw at peak, i.e. when you turn it first on, and typically that will be the input on the back of the accessory or the microwave, and that will be around about, say, 1200 watts. So you're right on that limit, and you're probably okay there. So that will cut out, say, if that's a 1500 watt inverter in there, for example, that one there, and I'm using, say, 1300 watt. If I keep that maximum to around 1200, I'll be okay. So look at the wattage and the efficiency of your accessories, which is what you always should do. Both the units come with Bluetooth. The V5.5 has a 2-year warranty, the V6 has a 3-year warranty. All the outputs on the V6 are on the outside. The LED screen, you can see here, is staying on. And with the screens here, if you hold it down for 6 seconds, it'll take what's called standby off, and then the screen will go off after 45 seconds. So people have come to us and said that the screen won't go off, but that's the reason, because if you hold this down for 6 seconds, it'll put it on standby, which means it stays on. You hold it again for 6 seconds, it'll go off, and then it'll go off 45 seconds. Because you remember you've got Bluetooth, you can see it on your phone. The V5.5 can accept an unregulated solar panel directly to the red here, because this has an MPPT controller inside which is rated 20 amp. The MPPT controller inside is a 14.6 profile, which is typically what you use on a solar panel if you're going to connect to the regulated input. So the red area here again is where you charge from. So here you quite happily put a 300 watt solar panel directly to this and let the controller inside regulate it for you. Over here, this is again 50 amp max. Across the whole unit, maximum 50 amp charge at any given time. V6 also maximum 50 amp charge at any given time. So we like to use the Maxim because of the price point, but also does a good job. And that's a 20 amp one, you can get them in 40s. One thing I'll say about this does have a solar regulator and a VSR built in, is that you need to use at least 200 watt solar panel with these, otherwise they won't kick in when you disconnect the vehicle, for example. So that will connect to the car, connect to the solar panel, and that will regulate it for you 20 amp, and you plug it in here. So you can quite happily connect that to the regulated input at 20 amp, and then you could run over here a 300 watt solar panel and be charging that at say 20 amp, because you've got a maximum of 50 amp charge rate. This Maxim plugged into that over there, you could plug a 40 amp Maxim into one of them, so 40 amp constant charge, 40 amp from solar, and you could run a 600 watt solar panel and connect it to the 40 watt, so the 40 amp version of that Maxim. You can use the Energize, you can use the Red Arcs, you can use any other big name brands you like, but just to get a package together that's a full dual, a true dual, but with the capacity to be lightweight and also still portable. So even that one over there, again, that's 530 by 61 by 322. So these two here are very similar in height. That's 2 mil higher. And then you've got the two red and black poles. The red and black poles is where you'd run a 100 amp hour discharge. So that can run 100 amp constant, which is where you'd run your larger inverter. Make sure you run the right size cabling. I'm running 9 mil cable from that to this 1500 watt inverter here. So that's the V5.5, 2 Anderson output, maximum 50 amp on each, because they're Anderson. And then you've got 2 Siggers here, and then you've got the fast USB-C over there. The switch here turns everything on and off in respect to the outputs. And then you've got the LED screen here, which has its own switch you can have on and off, or you can make it stay on. So again, the units themselves being Prismatic and A grade, they're exceptionally efficient. Like I said, this one here has been running a 52 litre now for 6 days, and I'm probably still going to get 2 more days out of it, believe it or not. And it's a 52 litre at -6 degrees, but it's not that hot outside yet, so that's obviously assisting in that respect. V5.5 now installed, and same with the V6s, they're installed now or on the way to stores. So if you're actually chasing one of these, we do have V5.5 in volume. So if you want one of these portability wise, they are exceptionally good, great value for money. $1,100 price point here, $1,599 for the V6. Again, 3 years, 2 years. So they have this capacity being thinner, you can put them in a few more places, a bit more application in respect to that, whereas this one here is a little bit more chunky, but again, very nice portable unit, finished very well. So these guys also with the dual fast USB, you can utilize that too for your phones and so on. So that's the V5.5 installs now. V6 also installed, that's the 105, so 105 amp hour, and that's 100 amp hour, and there's a 200 amp hour of the V6 units as well. So the 200 amp hour has 200 amp constant output, so you can run a 3000 watt inverter, and then you say 2500 watt of that 2,500 watt or 3,000 watt inverter. Just remember, if you connect a big inverter up, you can put a 3,000 watt inverter on that. You just can't use the 3,000 watt. That's all you got to remember, is what am I allowed to draw out of it, and just stay within the confines. It does have protection if you go crazy and you do overdraw, but the whole idea is to make sure you understand it. And on the back of both these units is also the quick reference guide, so you'll be able to refer to that for instructions. The instructions are also online at nomadpdu.com.au, and we'll be at the Perth show, I think in November, with the equipment as well. So if you're in Perth, come pop down and see us. But if you want to grab one of these in the short term, they're available now in stores, or give us a email to contact@nomadpdu.com.au and see what we can do in respect to the a DCDC combined with that. Remember also, you've still got the Sticker DC option. So these guys here, plug in the sticker socket, 5 amp, can charge directly, so you don't have to wire into your car if you don't want to. But the DCDC is now with the VSR built in, very straightforward, connected direct to the crank battery, just with a relay or a fuse between it, say 50 amp fuse. Pretty much straightforward. It's not very difficult at all. Or just plug that straight in the sticker socket and charge it at 5 amp. when you get to campsite, you can obviously put your big solar panels on. So again, 300 watt solar panel direct connected to the red on the V5, or you can have up to 50 amp regulated going into here. So if you have a regulated solar panel, and you say had a 600 watt solar panel, 14.6 profile with lithium on it, connected to that, and you can have a 600 watt panel connected and charging that, but that's your maximum you've got there, but it also charges the same on that one there. And that again, the profile will allow you to put them behind seats and a lot more areas where you've got confined space issues. Again, both exceptionally good units, and again, the efficiency of these is amazing, and you'll be surprised at what you'll get out of them. So again, depends on what you want to use them for. If you're not sure about what you're doing, send us an email to contact@nomad.pdu, and we're happy to help. Same as at the show, we spend a lot of our time assisting people with what their plans were when they're building their vans or their campers or whatever else they're building, their off-grid systems. So again, you can apply these to any of your small home type application. Again, thanks for joining us again. That's a quick overview of the V5.5 installs now, available now. Contact nomad.pdu.com.au. Also V6 install now. If you can't find one, send us an email and we'll find a